Hey, welcome back to From the Tech Desk by RC Experts here at Hobby. I'm your host, Brad Brooker. In today's video, we'll walk through the steps on how to install electronics in your Arrma 8S platform. Before we get started, we need a few items. You'll need some Loctite, double-sided tape, a pair of needle-nose pliers, a 2.0, 2.5, and a 3.0 driver. Now let's get wrenching. Let's start by getting the motor ready to be installed in the vehicle. First thing you gotta do is pick out which motor mount works correctly with the motor you have. The determining factor mostly is the actual bolt pattern on the motor mount, so it needs to match up with the motor. Also, when installing the actual motor mount on the motor, you want to make sure the wires will be out of harm's way, so make sure you have that as well. So you get the mount lined up. Once you have that lined up, you'll take your screws, which are included in the kit, put a Loctite on them. You don't have to put a bunch, just put a little. Go ahead and install the 3 screws. Once you have the motor mount installed, now it's time to install the pinion. We went with the Arrma D8 safe pinion. With this pinion, with the snap ring, it doesn't allow the actual pinion to fall off if it does come loose. So it's kind of a neat little safety feature. So go and get this installed. Again, we'll just make it tight. We won't snug it down. We may have to do some final adjustments when it's actually in the vehicle itself. Put a little Loctite on the set screw. Go install the E-clip. Use your needle nose pliers. There you go. Now the motors are ready to be installed in the vehicle. Now it's time to install the motor actually into the vehicle itself. So you'll grab your motor, get in the motor mount here. It'll slide in place. Once you get in place here, we'll just get close. We'll go ahead and get our screws in the mount itself as well. And also one screw will actually go on the bottom side of the mount. And installing the bottom screw, the motor has to be all the way on the outside of the mount to actually allow that screw to go in, to slide underneath between the chassis and the actual mount itself. So just a heads up on that. Again, don't tighten everything down, just get everything snug so you can still move the motor. So you have to set the gear mesh. So once you have the gear mesh set, go and tighten everything down. What I like to do is just a little snugger than normal, and then we'll come back and snug everything up nice and tight after you get all that snugged down. All right, so back through, tighten everything up nice and tight. There we go. Once you have the motor all snugged up and tightened down, one neat little feature wanted to point out on the side of the actual chassis here, the side guard, it does have a hole on the side of the guard itself. That is allow the wrench to go in and actually tighten the pinion down. So you take your wrench, go through that hole, and you actually tighten your pinion. Neat little feature added to the vehicle itself. Now it's time to install the servo. When it comes time installing the steering servo, you have 2 different options. You have a 6-scale servo or a 1/4 scale servo. Also, when you're determining which servo you're using, you make sure you use the correct mount as well, because the mounts that come with the kit itself are made for the certain servo. So you have a 1/4 scale mount and a 6-scale mount. So please make sure you use the correct mount with the correct servo. We're going to go with the 1/4 scale servo actually. So we'll move this one out of the way. So also when you're installing the servo itself, you make sure you put it in the correct orientation in the mount itself. So it can go in two different ways when installing the servo. So make sure you have it the correct way. The hardware is included in the kit as well. Let's go and grab that. Once you have the servo mounted, now it's time to run the wire. You want to grab the little rubber boots that come included with the kit as well to keep everything nice and watertight. Run the wire inside the receiver box itself. Once you have that done, now let's go install the receiver. Take some double-sided tape here as well. Put it on the bottom of the receiver. Peel the tape off. Go mount the receiver in the receiver box. Go and plug your servo in. Again, it's steering, so it's channel 1. Make sure you have the right polarity as well. Once you have the receiver installed, now it's time to install the ESC. When it comes time to installing the ESC, we're going with the Spectrum Firma 160 amp ESC. Also, what's nice about this ESC, it does have built-in mounting tabs that fit directly on top of the receiver box cover. So we're going to get that mounted up. Also, when mounting this onto the actual receiver box cover, make sure you mount it on the correct way. So the battery lead go towards the back, or best way to describe it is they go on top of the receiver box itself. Let's go and get this mounted on. Again, the screws are included. There's 4 of them. Once you have the ESC mounted, now it's going to mount the actual switch itself. There's actually a mount for this switch. It does come with a screw for that one as well. It's a little shorter than the other one, so make sure you get the correct one. Once you have the switch mounted, now it's time to actually run the wires into the receiver box and also put the rubber boot on the box, and don't forget the gasket to keep everything nice and watertight. You'll use the screws again included in the kit. So we'll get those off to the side here. Also, you want to make sure you run the receiver antenna wire outside the receiver box as well. Once you have the receiver box cover / ESC mount mounted to the receiver box itself, now it's time to install the servo saver. Before we start assembling the servo saver, there's a few things we need to go over. It does come with two different options of spline counts. It comes with a 17 tooth and a 15 tooth. So please make sure you pick the correct spline count for your actual servo itself. We're going with the 15 tooth, so put the 17 off to the side. Also comes with two different style O-rings. Make sure you put the right one in the right spot. The larger one will go on the back plate that you just picked. The other one will go on the front part of the servo saver itself. Once you have that, put a little dab of oil or grease on each one. Makes assembly a lot easier. Once you have that, there's a few things here I want to go over. A lot of the parts are keyed, so they go together only one way. So please don't force anything together. If it's going together difficultly, it's more than likely going together incorrectly. So again, make sure everything's going together nice and easily and everything's keyed correctly. So let's go get the servo saver together. Once you have the servo saver on your servo, next you want to make sure you have the little stopper. You're going to put that in the front of the servo saver. Next, you put the bearing in the front. You want to grab your linkage for the vehicle itself. You'll take the actual ball end. You're going to snap it in place. You want to grab your pliers. Once you have it in, you'll take your screw and washer itself here. You're going to mount it to the servo saver. You'll take your nut, put on the back side. Last thing we'll do is install the Tenon tube. Run the wire, run the Tenon wire up underneath. Put it through the tube. Get your set screw. A little rubber boot on top. There you have everything assembled. Now it's time to install in the vehicle. So when it comes time to install the ESC, receiver, and servo into the actual truck itself, we're going to mount the linkage first. Once you have that mounted, now it's time to mount the 4 screws on the bottom. Again, these are included in the kit as well. So there'll be 4 screws on the bottom, and they're 2.5 millimeter. So once you have that done, last but not least, it's time to hook the motor wires up into the ESC. Again, when you're doing this now, you want to make sure you have A to A, B to B, C to C. So make sure you have the correct one in the correct spot. Well, there you go. That's how you install the electronics in your ARM 8S platform. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more tips, tricks, and love videos from your RC experts, your Horizon Hobby.